Who's killing who?
What's wrong with you people?
Oh, my.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Puffin Movie Review, the ultimate spot where we spark something good, get our minds right, and break down what really went on behind the camera of our favorite films. If you are rolling with us today, do me a massive favor, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. We are pushing hard to hit that 1,000 subscriber milestone, and every single one of you joining the session helps us get there.
Hey, are you okay?
They're all dead.
Today we are lighting up and digging into the grim, sweaty, and surprisingly lucrative world of the 2003 remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Man, just thinking about that roar of the chainsaw while you're completely baked is enough to give you a contact chill. Let's spark this thing up and look at how this legendary remake actually came together.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
To really understand how this movie happened, we have to go back to the late 90s. Originally, a company called Unipix Entertainment bought the theatrical rights in 1998. They were actually working on a fifth installment, tentatively titled TX25, which was supposed to drop in 1999, but they let the option expire, and the project just vanished into thin air. Then, in December of 2001, Michael Bay. Yes, the Transformers, explosions everywhere. Michael Bay created a new production company called Platinum Dunes to make low-budget horror movies. Their very first target? Remaking Tobe Hooper's 1974 masterpiece. The early concept for the film was totally different from what we got. At first, they wanted the story to be told in flashbacks, with Marilyn Burns, the original final girl, Sally Hardesty reprising her role as an older Sally recounting the horrific events. Eventually, they just bought the rights outright and decided to do a completely fresh reimagining.
Hey, marker!
They initially talked about having the original creators, Tobe Hooper and Kim Henkel, write the script, but that ended up shifting. Instead, in June of 2002, they hired a music video director named Marcus Nispel to make his feature directorial debut. Now, this is where the story gets beautiful. Nispel was actually completely against the idea at first. He literally called remaking the Texas Chainsaw Massacre blasphemy, and he said this directly to his longtime director of photography, Daniel Pearl. But here's the twist that blows my mind. Daniel Pearl was the exact same guy who shot the original 1974 film on a shoestring budget. The ultimate bookend. Instead of being offended, Pearl actually encouraged Nispel to take the gig. Pearl wanted to shoot the remake because he thought it would be the ultimate poetic way to bookend his entire cinematography career, starting and ending with chainsaw films. Talk about full circle. With Pearl on board, they brought back Tobe Hooper and Kim Henkel as co-producers, and they even got John Larroquette to return and record that iconic haunting opening narration for the intertitles.
Come on out!
What is that? The hitchhiker. What were they all doing here?
They hired Scott Kosar to pen the actual screenplay. Just like the original 1974 classic, the script was loosely inspired by the real-life crimes of the Wisconsin serial killer, Ed Gein. It's wild how much one real-life dark soul influenced the entire horror genre. Gein's bizarre and horrifying farmhouse crimes didn't just inspire Chainsaw, they were also the exact same roots that gave us the novels for Psycho and The Silence of the Lambs. When the movie finally hit theaters on October 17, 2003, critics gave it some pretty mixed reviews. Some people just couldn't handle the new, polished, gritty style. But the audiences? Man, the audiences flooded the theaters. The movie absolutely crushed the box office, raking in over $107 million worldwide on a tiny budget of just $9.5 million. It completely solidified Platinum Dunes as a horror powerhouse and even spawned a prequel in 2006 called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Man, $107 million off a $9 million budget. That is a lot of green, if you know what I mean. So the studio hands the keys to this legendary franchise to a guy named Scott Kosar. This was literally his very first professional screenwriting gig. Can you imagine the sheer anxiety of your first job being a remake of one of the most sacred horror films of all time, Kosar later said he felt incredibly honored. But he realized early on that the 1974 original was a masterpiece that honestly couldn't be bettered. Instead of trying to compete with it, he convinced the producers that they needed to make something entirely different because the era and the circumstances had completely changed. Kosar clearly knew what he was doing because he went on to write The Machinist and the Amityville Horror remake later on. But here's a piece of trivia that absolutely blows my mind. In the earlier drafts of the script, the main character, Erin, played by Jessica Biel, was supposed to be 9 months pregnant through the entire movie. Just visualize that for a second. A woman who is literally about to pop, sprinting away from a lunatic with a live power tool. Producer Michael Bay looked at that draft and said absolutely not, forcing them to cut the pregnancy angle entirely. Instead, they cast Jessica Biel, who at the time was famous for the very wholesome family TV show Seventh Heaven, which was a massive pivot for her. Now, the story of how they found their Leatherface is pure Hollywood chaos. There was an actor named Andrew Bryniarski who had worked with Michael Bay on Pearl Harbor. They were buddies, so Andrew straight up went to Bay and asked for the role. But the filmmakers had already cast a different actor named Brett Wagner. On the very first day of shooting, Wagner gets rushed to the hospital and immediately gets fired because he apparently lied about his actual physical abilities to handle the grueling demands of the role. Suddenly, the crew is standing around on day one of a massive horror movie with absolutely no villain. The producers panic, call up Andrew Bryniarski, and ask if he still wants the gig. He takes it on the spot. To get his body ready to play a massive, intimidating cannibal, Andrew went on what sounds like the ultimate munchie diet. He strictly ate brisket and white bread until his weight ballooned to nearly 300 pounds. When it came to choosing where to shoot, the director, Marcus Nispel, really wanted to film the whole thing in California to keep things easy. But Michael Bay put his foot down and insisted on Texas, since he had already shot projects there 3 times before. They ended up in Austin in July of 2002, and the shoot lasted for a brutal 40 days. Nispel and the returning cinematographer Daniel Pearl made a conscious choice not to copy the original movie's famous documentary, grainy style. Pearl explicitly told people on set that there was zero point in making the exact same film with the exact same look, since he had already done that 30 years prior. They wanted this one to feel like a stylized, traditionally shot cinematic nightmare. And man, the physical reality of that set sounds like a total punishment. The Texas summer weather was incredibly hot and insanely humid. Andrew Bryniarski did every single one of his own stunts, but because he was playing Leatherface, they forced him to wear a massive fat suit underneath his costume. That suit added an extra 120 pounds to his frame, bringing his total weight up to a massive 420 pounds. The suit trapped heat like a literal oven, meaning he had to constantly chug fluids just to keep from passing out from heat stroke. To make things even more suffocating, his Leatherface mask was made out of thick silicone, which made it incredibly hard to breathe while sprinting through the woods. On top of that, the special effects crew had an entire arsenal of prop chainsaws ready to go. Some were completely live, dangerous saws, while others were specially modified just to pump out thick cinematic smoke. 42 pounds in the Texas summer heat while wearing a silicone mask. Man, that is a completely different level of dedication to the craft. Alright, let's wrap our heads around the final phase of this wild ride, the actual release, and the absolutely massive pile of cash this movie brought in. Because when you sit down and look at the math, what Platinum Dunes pulled off here is nothing short of mind-blowing.
That is like so...
When the movie was finally locked, loaded, and covered in fake blood, it was ready to hit the masses on October 17, 2003. New Line Cinema handled the heavy lifting in North America, blasting the film out into a massive 3,016 theaters. Now, behind the scenes, the international distribution had a bit of a corporate shakeup. Originally, a company called Good Machine was supposed to handle everything outside of the US, but right around that time, Good Machine ended up merging with another company, and Focus Features took over the reins to push Leatherface out to the rest of the world. Man, the opening day alone was an absolute slaughterhouse for the competition. The movie raked in $10,620,000 on its very first day. By the time the weekend wrapped up, it had secured a massive $29.1 million opening weekend, easily debuting at the #1 spot at the US box office. People were absolutely addicted to the grimy, intense vibe Marcus Nispel put on screen. Within just 17 days of hitting theaters, the film had already cleared over $66 million domestically. To give you an idea of how much of a goldmine this project actually was, let's look at how the final numbers stacked up: box office market gross revenue, North American gross $86 million, international gross, including a UK Halloween release $26.5 million, total worldwide gross $107 million, production budget $9.5 million. Think about those numbers for a second. They made this entire movie for a meager $9.5 million and walked away with over $100 million in total global revenue. Because of that massive return on investment, the 2003 remake officially became the highest-grossing film in the entire Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, even when you adjust everything for inflation. To put that into perspective, if you adjust that box office run to 2018 standards, the movie would have cleared well over $162 million. It completely changed the game for how Hollywood looked at classic horror IPs, proving that if you style it right and bring the intensity, the audience will show up in droves.
Pretty much. I just drew up what I saw.
We shot this in Austin, Texas.
Man, while the studio executives were rolling around in all that box office cash, the critics were having an absolute collective meltdown. It is hilarious to look back at the massive divide between the people who paid to see it and the people who wrote about it for a living. Let's look at the critical slaughterhouse. If you look at the aggregate scores, the numbers are pretty brutal. Rotten Tomatoes? It sits at a messy 37% approval rating from 155 reviews. The official consensus basically called it an unnecessary, overly gory remake that just wasn't as scary as the original. Metacritic scraped together a 38 out of 100, placing it firmly in the generally unfavorable zone. CinemaScore. But remember, regular horror fans who actually filled the seats gave it a B+. The people loved it, even if the highbrow critics hated it. Man, at the end of the day, whether you agree with Roger Ebert's 0 stars or you think this thing is an absolute stylized masterpiece, you cannot deny the massive impact the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre had on the entire horror landscape. It birthed a whole generation of remakes and proved that sometimes a little brisket, a 420-pound fat suit, and a dream is all you need to completely shake up Hollywood. But I want to know what you think. Are you rolling with the raw documentary-style madness of the 1974 original, or do you prefer the sleek, sweaty, hyper-intense vibe of this 2003 remake? And let's be real, could you handle running for your life from a 300-pound man with a live power tool after a heavy smoking session? Let me know down in the comments below. If you had a good time sparking up and revisiting this horror history with me today, please hit that like button. It helps the algorithm find the channel. And if you haven't already, do me a huge favor and hit subscribe. We are pushing incredibly hard to reach that 1,000 subscriber milestone, and every single one of you joining the community means the world to the channel. Thank you so much for hanging out, packing a bowl, and talking movies with me today. Stay safe, keep it completely chill, and I will catch you right here for the next review.